Have you ever felt a profound and unsettling silence in the middle of a noisy day? A moment where the clamor of your life, the emails, the deadlines, the expectations, fades away, and you are left with a single, piercing question: is this all there is? The 19th century philosopher Henry David Thoreau wrote that, "The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation." It is a phrase that has echoed through time because it captures a truth we rarely dare to speak aloud. It is the feeling of being alive, but not truly living. You meet your responsibilities, you nod politely, you play your part in the grand theater of society. Yet, deep within the sanctum of your own mind, something essential feels like it is quietly fading. You compromise on your dreams. You delay your true life. You ration your spirit as if you are saving it for a second chance that will never come. This feeling is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign that you are awake. It is the soul's rebellion against a life lived on autopilot. It is a call, not to a new destination, but to a new way of traveling. This journey we are about to embark on is not here to offer you a fleeting dose of motivation. It is a structured, deep, and practical exploration of an ancient operating system for the human mind, Stoicism philosophy. This is not a philosophy for the classroom, it is a philosophy forged in the crucible of life by some of the most resilient figures in history. A Roman emperor, Marcus Aurelius, who found tranquility while commanding legions on the brutal frontiers of a sprawling empire. A political advisor, Seneca, who wrote his most profound letters on inner peace while facing exile and a death sentence from a tyrannical emperor. And a slave, Epictetus, who discovered that a man could be in chains and yet be freer than his own master. What did these men understand that we have forgotten? They understood the nature of true freedom. They knew that freedom is not something granted by the world. It is not found in wealth, status, or the absence of problems. True freedom is an inside job. It is the unshakable, internal fortress you build, stone by stone, thought by thought, that allows you to remain calm, purposeful, and master of yourself, no matter what storms rage outside. It is the ability to choose your response, to act with virtue, and to find meaning even in suffering. Today, we will walk through the 5 gates of Stoic freedom. Each gate represents a core principle, a fundamental shift in perspective that, when practiced, dismantles the prison of quiet desperation. This is not a lecture, it is a guided reflection. I urge you to give this time to yourself. Silence your notifications, find a quiet space, and let these ideas settle. Because the answers you may have been seeking are not out there in the noise of the world, they are waiting for you, in the stillness within. Let us begin. 1. The first gate of freedom, mastering the dichotomy of control. The first, and perhaps most crucial, gate to Stoic freedom is the mastery of a single, revolutionary idea. It is the foundation upon which the entire edifice of Stoic thought is built. The Stoics called it the dichotomy of control, and it is the key to unlocking a life of profound tranquility and effectiveness. Epictetus, the slave who became one of Rome's most revered teachers, put it with startling clarity in the opening lines of his Enchiridion, or handbook. Some things are up to us, and some things are not up to us. Up to us are our judgment, our impulse, our desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever is our own doing. Not up to us are our body, our property, our reputation, office, and, in a word, whatever is not our own doing. Let that sink in. This isn't just a clever saying, it is a surgical tool for the mind. The Stoics believed that the vast majority of human suffering, our anxiety, our anger, our frustration, our despair, stems from a fundamental confusion between these two categories. We spend our precious and finite energy trying to command the things that are ultimately not ours to command. Think about it. We rage at the traffic, a variable utterly beyond our influence. We despair over a negative comment from a boss or a stranger on the internet, forgetting that their opinions are their own property, not ours. We pin our happiness to a specific outcome, getting the promotion, winning the affection of another, achieving a certain level of wealth, and in doing so, we hand the keys to our inner peace over to the unpredictable whims of fortune. We are, as Seneca wrote, tossed on a stormy sea, reacting to every wave, instead of learning to steer our own ship. The Stoic response is not one of passive resignation. It is one of radical, strategic focus. The philosophy commands us to relentlessly, brutally, and honestly withdraw our attention from the things we cannot control and pour every ounce of our energy into the things we can, our thoughts, our judgments, our actions, our character, and our will. This is our sacred domain. Imagine an archer. She can control her stance, her grip, the tension of the bowstring, the steadiness of her breath, and the moment of release. She can pour years of practice into perfecting her form. This is what is up to us. But the moment the arrow leaves the bow, it enters the realm of the uncontrollable. A sudden gust of wind, a subtle movement from the target, the humidity in the air, these are not hers to command. The foolish archer obsesses over the arrow's flight, her happiness rising and falling with whether it hits the bullseye. She is a slave to the outcome. The Stoic archer, however, finds her satisfaction in the perfection of her own actions. She did everything within her power to make a good shot. The outcome is a preferred indifferent. It is welcome if it happens, but her inner tranquility is not dependent on it. She is free because her sense of worth comes from her own effort, not from the verdict of the world. Let's bring this into the modern world with a story. Consider Clara, a talented and passionate graphic designer. For years, she lived in a state of quiet desperation, her emotional life a roller coaster dictated by client feedback. When a client loved her work, she soared with validation. When they sent a list of revisions laced with vague, subjective criticism, "It just doesn't pop," or "Can you make it more exciting?" she would spiral into anxiety and self-doubt. Her mind would race for days. Am I not good enough? Did I misunderstand the brief? What if they fire me? She was investing all her emotional energy in something she could not control, the subjective taste of another person. Then, she encountered the teachings of Epictetus. The dichotomy of control struck her not as a philosophy, but as a lifeline. She decided to run an experiment. For her next project, she would become a Stoic archer. She created a document for herself titled, My Domain. In it, she listed what was up to her, the quality of her research, her attention to the design principles of color, typography, and composition, the clarity of her communication, the professionalism of her presentation, and her willingness to listen to feedback without emotional reaction. What was not up to her? The client's mood that day, their unspoken preferences, their company's internal politics, or whether they ultimately liked the design. When the feedback email arrived, it was the same as always, a list of confusing and subjective changes. The old Clara would have felt her stomach drop. But the new Clara paused. She took a deep breath. She reread her My Domain document. The client's opinion was in the not up to me category. Her response, however, was entirely within her control. Instead of sending a defensive email or spiraling into despair, she crafted a calm, professional reply. She acknowledged their feedback and, instead of trying to guess what exciting meant, she proposed a short meeting to discuss their goals for the design more concretely. She prepared clarifying questions. She was no longer a victim of their vague feedback, she was a strategic partner guiding the process. The result was transformative. The client, met with calm competence instead of reactive anxiety, became more collaborative. The project turned out better. But more importantly, Clara felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in years. The outcome was still not entirely in her control, but her inner state was. She had found freedom not by changing the client, but by changing where she placed her focus. This is the power of the first gate. It is not about apathy. It is about precision. It is about conserving your most precious resources, your attention, your energy, and your peace of mind, and investing them only where they can yield a return. A practical exercise, the circles of concern and control. Tonight, before you go to sleep, take out a piece of paper or open a notebook. Draw a large circle. This is your circle of concern. Inside it, Write down everything that is worrying you right now. Big or small. The economy, a political issue, a strained relationship, a work deadline, your health, a mistake you made last week. Fill it with every anxiety that is occupying your mental space. Now, inside that large circle, draw a smaller one. This is your circle of control. Look at the items you wrote in the larger circle. Which of those things do you have direct, immediate control over? Not influence, but control. You can't control the economy, but you can control your spending habits. You can't control whether someone forgives you, but you can control whether you offer a sincere apology. You can't control a deadline set by your boss, but you can control how you organize your time to meet it. Carefully, move those items into the smaller, inner circle. Now, look at the two circles. The Stoic path to tranquility is to make a conscious vow to yourself. For the next 24 hours, you will focus your energy exclusively on the items within the small circle. You will let go of the rest. You will treat them as you would the weather, as conditions to be navigated, not problems to be solved by worry. Do this every day for a week. You will begin to feel a profound shift. The world will not have changed, but you will have changed your relationship to it. You are no longer a leaf in the wind, but the captain of your own soul. You have passed through the first gate. 2. The second gate of freedom, the liberation from opinion. Once you begin to master the art of focusing only on what is within your control, you will inevitably confront the next great obstacle to inner freedom, our deep, primal, and often destructive craving for the approval of others. We live in a civilization built on mirrors. Social media has weaponized our need for validation, turning our lives into a performance. We curate our photos, polish our updates, and then we wait, holding our breath, for the cascade of likes, shares, and comments that will temporarily soothe the ever-present question, am I good enough? We become, as the Stoics would say, slaves to the opinions of those who do not even know us. Marcus Aurelius, a man who sat at the pinnacle of human power, wrestled with this constantly. As emperor, his every action was scrutinized, judged, and recorded. Yet in the private pages of his meditations, he reminds himself again and again of the sheer absurdity of seeking lasting worth from fleeting praise. Whenever you are seeking a reward for a good deed, you are forgetting the most important thing: you have acted in accordance with your own nature. Isn't that enough? Does the eye demand a reward for seeing? Do the feet demand a reward for walking? He continues, with cutting insight, it is a strange thing to be so preoccupied with the opinions of others, yet to have so little regard for one's own. This is the second gate of freedom, the liberation from the tyranny of opinion. It is the realization that seeking your self-worth in the eyes of others is like building your house on sand. It is an unstable foundation, for the crowd is a fickle master. They will praise you today and condemn you tomorrow for the very same reason. True freedom is building your house on the bedrock of your own reasoned judgment and virtuous character. Let's explore this through another story. Consider Leo, a young and brilliant guitarist. He started playing because he loved the feel of the strings, the resonance of the wood, the way a melody could articulate a feeling that words could not. His music was his sanctuary. Then, he discovered YouTube and Instagram. He began posting videos of himself playing. At first, the comments were intoxicating. "You're a genius. This is incredible." Each notification was a dopamine hit. He began to crave it. His practice sessions changed. He was no longer exploring music for its own sake, he was trying to create content that would perform well. He started playing faster, flashier pieces, chasing the wow factor. He checked his analytics obsessively. A video with fewer views felt like a personal failure. A negative comment could ruin his entire day. Slowly, without even realizing it, the joy was gone. The guitar, once a source of freedom and expression, had become a tool for seeking validation. The sanctuary had become a prison, its bars forged from the opinions of strangers. He was living in a state of quiet desperation, addicted to an approval that was never stable and never enough. One day, after a particularly harsh comment sent him into a spiral of self-doubt, he thought of quitting. In his despair, he stumbled upon the writings of Epictetus, who said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." The quote struck him. He had been so afraid of being thought of as not good enough that he had stopped being good at all. He decided on a new path, a Stoic one. He deleted the apps from his phone. He made a vow to himself: for the next 100 days, he would not post a single video. He would not perform. He would simply practice. The first few weeks were excruciating. The silence was deafening. He felt invisible, irrelevant. The urge to check for validation was a physical ache. But he persisted. He went back to the basics, to the slow, deliberate practice of scales, of tone, of feeling. He started listening to music again, not to analyze its viral potential, but to feel its beauty. He was reclaiming his craft from the clutches of the crowd. He was learning to be his own audience, his own critic, his own source of approval. After 100 days, he was a different musician. His technique was more profound, his understanding of music deeper. He had fallen in love with the process again. He eventually started sharing his music again, but from a different place. He no longer needed the applause. He shared his work as a gift, an offering. The outcome was not up to him. His freedom was. This liberation is not about becoming arrogant or dismissive of feedback. A Stoic values feedback from a wise and virtuous source. But they have learned to distinguish between constructive guidance and the empty noise of the crowd. They have a well-calibrated internal compass for what is good, true, and beautiful. Their self-worth is non-negotiable, determined by their character and their adherence to virtue, not by popular vote. A practical exercise, the practice of unwitnessed action. This exercise is simple, but it can be profoundly challenging in our hyper-connected world. Your task is to reclaim one area of your life from the court of public opinion. For the next 7 days, choose one activity that you typically perform with an audience in mind, whether it's your workout, your cooking, your reading habits, or your creative pursuits. And for 7 days, do it in complete privacy. If you work out, do not post a gym selfie. Do not update your fitness app. Do not talk about it with your friends. Simply do the workout for the sake of your own health and strength. If you cook a beautiful meal, resist the urge to photograph it for Instagram. Savor it for its taste and nourishment alone. If you read a profound book, do not immediately tweet a quote from it. Let the wisdom settle within you first. At the end of each day, take a moment to journal about the experience. How did it feel to act without an audience? Was it freeing? Was it uncomfortable? Did you notice the urge to share, and what was that feeling like? This practice is designed to strengthen your internal locus of evaluation. It trains you to find satisfaction in the action itself, not in the reaction it provokes. It is a small but powerful step toward passing through the second gate, toward a freedom that is quiet, stable, and entirely your own. 3. The third gate of freedom, escaping the prison of past and future. Having fortified ourselves against the judgment of others, we arrive at the third gate of freedom. This gate does not lead outward to the world, but inward, to the very landscape of time as it exists in our minds. Here, we confront two of the most powerful thieves of human tranquility, regret for the past and anxiety for the future. The human mind is a time-traveling machine. With a single thought, we can be transported back to a mistake made a decade ago, reliving the shame and embarrassment as if it were happening right now. With another thought, we can leap forward into 1,000 potential catastrophes, feeling the stress of events that have not occurred and may never occur. We are, as Seneca so brilliantly observed, more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality. This mental time travel is the source of our quiet desperation. We are haunted by the ghosts of what was and terrified by the phantoms of what might be. In doing so, we neglect the only point in time where we have any real power, where life is actually lived, the present moment. Marcus Aurelius, in the midst of war and plague, continuously pulled his own mind back to this single point of power. He writes in Meditations, "Do not let the panorama of your life overwhelm you. Do not dwell on all the various troubles which you have encountered and expect to encounter. Instead, ask yourself in each instance, what is it in this that is unbearable and beyond endurance? You will be ashamed to confess. Then remind yourself that it is not the future or the past that weighs you down, but always the present." This is a profound diagnostic tool for the soul. When we are overwhelmed, it is rarely the present moment itself that is the problem. A difficult conversation is just a series of words being exchanged now. A challenging task is just a sequence of small actions to be taken now. The unbearable weight comes from the stories we attach to it, the baggage of past failures and the fear of future consequences. The Stoic seeks to strip away these stories and deal only with the raw data of the present. Let's explore the story of Eleanor. At 52, Eleanor was successful by any external measure, a stable career, a loving family, a comfortable home. But internally, she was living in a prison of regret. She was haunted by the ghost of a past self, the aspiring painter she had been in her 20s. She had abandoned her art for a more practical career in finance, a decision that felt sensible at the time but had left a lingering ache of, what if? Every success in her current life felt hollow, a reminder of the life she hadn't lived. She would scroll through the websites of successful artists her age and feel a pang of envy and regret so sharp it was like a physical pain. The past was not the past for her, it was a constant, living presence that poisoned her present. Her journey toward freedom began with Seneca's essay, On the Shortness of Life. She was struck by his argument that life is not short, but that we make it short by wasting it on trivialities, on pointless anxieties, and on being preoccupied with the future, or worn out by the past. He wrote, "You are arranging what lies in fortune's control, and abandoning what lies in yours. What are you looking at? To what goal are you straining? The whole future lies in uncertainty, live immediately." Eleanor realized she had been abandoning the one thing she could control, her present, to mourn a past she could not change. She decided to apply a Stoic practice. She would treat her past not as a source of shame, but as unchangeable reality, the raw material that had forged the person she was today. Her financial career, which she had seen as a betrayal of her art, had given her discipline, strategic thinking, and the resources she now possessed. It was not a mistake, it was part of her path. With this new perspective, she took action in the present. She didn't quit her job. She didn't try to rewind the clock. She converted a spare room in her house into a small studio. She enrolled in a weekend painting class. She started small, not with the grand ambition of becoming a famous artist, but with the simple intention of being an artist now. She began to mentor young, struggling artists, using her financial acumen to help them build sustainable careers, something she had never learned to do for herself. She was integrating her past and present. The regret began to dissolve, replaced by a sense of purpose. She was no longer haunted by the ghost of her younger self, she was honoring her. She had escaped the prison of the past by fully inhabiting the power of the present. This is the freedom that awaits on the other side of the third gate. It is the peace that comes from making a truce with time. A practical exercise, the present moment anchor. Anxiety about the future and regret for the past are habits of the mind. To break them, we need to train a new habit, the practice of returning to the present. This exercise is a mental anchor you can use anytime, anywhere, to pull yourself back from the turbulent waters of time-traveling thought. The next time you feel yourself being pulled into a spiral of worry or regret, stop. No matter what you are doing. And perform this 3-step anchoring process. Anchor to your breath, close your eyes if you can. If not, simply soften your gaze. Bring your full attention to the physical sensation of your breath. Feel the air entering your nostrils, cool and distinct. Feel your chest and abdomen expand. Feel the pause at the top of the inhale. Then feel the gentle release as you exhale. Do not try to change your breathing. Simply observe it as it is. Follow 3 full breaths, from the very beginning of the inhale to the very end of the exhale. Anchor to your body. Now, expand your awareness to the physical sensations in your body. Feel the points of contact between your body and the chair or the floor. Feel the weight of your hands in your lap. Notice the temperature of the air on your skin. Wiggle your toes inside your shoes and feel that sensation. You are grounding yourself in the physical reality of now. Anchor to your senses, gently open your eyes. Without labeling or judging, simply notice what your senses are taking in. Name 5 things you can see in the room around you: a lamp, a crack in the wall, the color blue. Name 4 things you can feel: the texture of your clothes, a breeze. Name 3 things you can hear: the hum of a computer, distant traffic, your own breathing. Name 2 things you can smell. Name 1 thing you can taste. This technique, often used in mindfulness and cognitive behavioral therapy, is a powerful circuit breaker for the anxious mind. It yanks your attention out of the abstract world of thought and plants it firmly in the concrete reality of the present moment. It reminds you that, in this very instant, you are safe. You are here. And here, in the now, is where your power lies. You have passed through the 3rd gate. 4. The 4th gate of freedom, the power of amor fati and premeditatio malorum. We now arrive at the 4th gate, a place where Stoic philosophy presents us with its most challenging, and ultimately most liberating, set of ideas. Here, we must reconcile 2 concepts that seem, at first glance, to be in direct opposition: premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils, and amor fati, the love of one's fate. How can one prepare for the worst while simultaneously loving whatever happens? The answer lies in understanding that these are not contradictory ideas, but 2 sides of the same coin, the coin of radical acceptance and resilience. Together, they form an armor for the soul that makes one nearly invincible to the blows of fortune. Let us first examine premeditatio malorum. As we have touched upon, the ancient Stoics would begin their day by contemplating all the things that could go wrong. They would imagine losing their property, their health, their loved ones, even their own lives. A modern person might hear this and call it morbid pessimism, a recipe for anxiety. But the Stoics were psychologists of the highest order. They understood that this practice was not meant to create fear, but to inoculate against it. Uncertainty is the fuel of anxiety. The shock of an unexpected disaster is what shatters our composure. By mentally rehearsing misfortune, the Stoic robs it of its power of surprise. When adversity does strike, the Stoic mind does not panic. It says, "Ah, I have considered this. I knew this was a possibility. Now, what is the virtuous way to respond?" It transforms fear into preparation, and surprise into strategy. Now, let's turn to amor fati, a concept most famously articulated not by a Stoic, but by the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, who was deeply influenced by them. Amor fati translates to, a love of one's fate. It is the practice of not merely tolerating what happens, but embracing it, loving it, and seeing it as necessary. It is the conviction that everything that occurs, from the most beautiful triumphs to the most painful tragedies, is a part of the grand, interconnected tapestry of existence. To wish for any part of it to be different is to wish for the entire universe to be different. This is not passive resignation. It is an active, joyful, and courageous affirmation of reality. It is the ultimate expression of freedom, the freedom to say yes to life, in its entirety. The Stoic who practices amor fati sees every obstacle not as a roadblock, but as a new path. They echo the famous words of Marcus Aurelius, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." A difficult colleague is not a curse, they are an opportunity to practice patience and justice. A financial loss is not a tragedy, it is an opportunity to practice temperance and resilience. A painful illness is not a punishment, it is an opportunity to practice courage and find meaning beyond the physical body. The obstacle is the material from which virtue is forged. Let's see how these 2 principles work together through a tale of 2 individuals. First, there is David, an architect who, after a decade of loyal service, is suddenly laid off during a corporate restructuring. The old David would have been devastated, spiraling into panic and despair. But having studied Stoicism, he had been practicing premeditatio malorum. Every few months, he would run a fire drill in his mind. What if I lost my job tomorrow? He had already thought through the steps: update his resume, activate his professional network, cut unnecessary expenses, and view the period of unemployment not as a failure, but as a sabbatical for learning a new skill. So when the news came, the shock was minimal. He felt the sting of disappointment, of course, but his mind was not paralyzed by fear. It was primed for action. He executed the plan he had already rehearsed. The obstacle did not break him, it revealed the strength his preparation had built. Now consider Sarah, a vibrant marathon runner who receives a diagnosis of a progressive autoimmune disease that will eventually rob her of her ability to run. This is not a temporary setback, it is a permanent, unchangeable reality. This is where a more fatty becomes the necessary tool. Initial despair gives way to a profound choice. She can spend the rest of her life mourning the runner she used to be, living in bitter opposition to her fate. Or she can love it. She can accept this new reality as her path, the material for a new kind of life. She chooses the latter. She tells herself, my legs can no longer carry me through marathons, but perhaps my voice can. She starts a blog and a support group for others living with chronic illness. She writes with a raw and courageous honesty about her grief, her struggles, and her moments of unexpected joy. She discovers a new form of endurance, not of the body, but of the spirit. Her suffering, when embraced through a more fatty, becomes her greatest source of strength and her most profound way of serving others. She did not choose her fate, but she chose to love it. And in that choice, she found a deeper freedom than any marathon could have given her. David used premeditation to manage a reversible crisis. Sarah used a more fatty to find meaning in an irreversible fate. Both passed through the fourth gate. They learned to look upon the face of fortune, whether smiling or snarling, and not flinch. This is the alchemy of Stoicism. It is the art of turning whatever life throws at you, lead, stone, or mud, into gold. 5. The fifth and final gate of freedom, the daily practice of virtue. We have journeyed through 4 gates. We have learned to distinguish between what we can and cannot control. We have liberated ourselves from the need for external validation. We have escaped the prison of past and future. And we have learned to embrace our fate, turning every obstacle into an opportunity. Now, we arrive at the 5th and final gate, the one that leads into the very heart of the Stoic citadel. It is here that we discover the ultimate purpose of our freedom. For a Stoic, freedom is not an end in itself. We do not seek freedom merely to be comfortable or to do as we please. We seek freedom for one reason, to be good. The final gate is the daily practice of virtue. For the Stoics, virtue, or euridi in Greek, is the sole good. Things like health, wealth, and pleasure are preferred indifference. They are nice to have, but they have no bearing on our moral worth or our ultimate happiness. A person can be healthy, wealthy, and miserable. A person can be sick, poor, and profoundly content. The only thing that determines the quality of a life is the quality of one's character. The Stoics broke virtue down into 4 cardinal components. Wisdom, Sophia. This is the master virtue. It is the ability to navigate the complexities of life with logic, reason, and clarity. It is knowing what is good, what is bad, and what is indifferent. It is the knowledge that allows us to apply the dichotomy of control, to understand what truly matters, and to live in accordance with nature. Justice, dikaiosune. This is perhaps the most misunderstood Stoic virtue. Stoicism is not a self-centered philosophy. The Stoics believed we are social creatures, like bees in a hive, born to work together. Justice is the virtue of understanding our duties to our fellow human beings. It is kindness, fairness, integrity, and public service. True freedom involves recognizing our interconnectedness and acting for the common good. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What is not good for the beehive cannot be good for the bee." Courage, Andrea, this is not just the absence of fear in battle. It is moral courage. It is the strength to face down not just physical threats, but also fear, shame, anxiety, and public opinion. It is the courage to do the right thing, even when it is hard. It is the courage to speak the truth, to live authentically, and to endure hardship with grace. Temperance, Sophrosyne, this is the virtue of self-mastery, of discipline, and of moderation. It is the ability to master our desires and appetites, rather than being enslaved by them. It is freedom from the pull of pleasure, the addiction to comfort, and the impulse for more. A person who practices temperance does not need much to be content, and is therefore free from the anxieties that plague those who are always craving. These four virtues are not separate qualities, they are a unified whole. You cannot truly have one without the others. They are like four legs of a single, stable table. Together, they form the blueprint for a good and happy life, a life of eudaimonia, or human flourishing. This is the ultimate freedom the Stoics sought, the freedom to be a person of wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance in any and every situation. It is a freedom that cannot be taken away by a tyrant, a disease, or a financial crisis. It is a freedom that resides entirely within your own character. A practical exercise, the Stoics' daily journal. The Stoics were not armchair philosophers. They believed in rigorous daily practice. Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius all recommended a form of daily journaling as a tool for moral self-examination and improvement. This final exercise is a template for your own Stoic journal, a way to consciously and consistently practice the virtues. Divide your journaling into two parts, morning and evening. The morning preparation, 5 minutes. Upon waking, before the noise of the day begins, ask yourself these questions. What obstacles might I encounter today? Practicing premeditatio malorum, how can I meet them with virtue? If I face an irritable person, I will meet them with patience, temperance, and understanding, justice. If I face a difficult task, I will meet it with persistence, courage. What is within my control today? My attitude, my actions, my responses. I will focus only on these. Which virtue will be my primary focus today? Choose one of the four, wisdom, justice, courage, or temperance, and make a conscious intention to embody it throughout the day. The evening review, 10 minutes. Before sleep, review your day with these prompts, inspired by the questions Seneca asked himself each night. Where did I act in accordance with virtue today? Acknowledge your successes. Did you show courage by speaking up in a meeting? Did you show temperance by resisting an unhealthy craving? Did you show justice by listening patiently to a friend? Where did I fall short of my own ideals? Be honest but not self-flagellating. Did I lose my temper? Did I procrastinate out of fear? Did I speak unfairly about someone? What can I learn from my shortcomings? How can I approach a similar situation with more wisdom tomorrow? For what am I grateful? End by counting your blessings, no matter how small. Gratitude fosters a mindset of appreciation and contentment. This daily practice is the forge. It is where a good character is hammered into shape. It is the disciplined work of passing through the final gate of freedom, day after day after day. The end of quiet desperation. We have walked together through the 5 gates of Stoic freedom. We have seen that the path out of a life of quiet desperation is not a path of escape, but one of mastery. It begins with the first gate, mastering the dichotomy of control, where we learn to focus our energy only on what is ours to command, our own minds. It leads to the second gate, the liberation from opinion, where we unchain ourselves from the need for external validation and find our worth in our own character. From there, we pass through the third gate, escaping the prison of past and future, where we learn to inhabit the only point of time that is real and powerful, the present moment. We then face the fourth gate, the crucible of amor fati and premeditatio malorum, where we learn to embrace our fate and turn every obstacle into fuel for our own growth. And finally, we arrive at the fifth gate, the inner sanctum of the daily practice of virtue, where we understand that true freedom is the power to choose the good, to live a life of wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. This journey, this deep exploration of Stoicism philosophy, is not a one-time event. It is a lifelong commitment. It is a daily practice of choosing to be the master of your inner world, rather than a victim of your circumstances. Quiet desperation is a prison whose bars are forged from our own untamed thoughts, our unexamined emotions, and our unconscious reactions. Stoicism hands you the key. The world will continue to be chaotic. People will continue to be unpredictable. Fortune will continue to be fickle. But none of that needs to disturb the tranquility of the citadel you have built within. You have the power to live with purpose. You have the power to live with resilience. You have the power to live with a peace that the world cannot give and cannot take away. You have the power to choose freedom. So, I ask you now, as we conclude our journey together, which gate will you commit to walking through this week? Is it the gate of control? The gate of opinion? The gate of the present moment? The gate of fate? Or the gate of virtue? Declare your intention in the comments below. Let us build a community of practice, a modern Stoa where we can support each other on this noble path. Your journey is your own, but you do not have to walk it alone. If this guide has provided you with value and clarity, please show your support by liking this video and subscribing to BAudio for more deep, reflective journeys into the heart of philosophy. Share this with someone who you feel might be living their own life of quiet desperation. Sometimes, all it takes is the right reminder, at the right moment, to begin the journey home to oneself. Thank you for your time and your attention. Live with Virtue.